Breaking, Michael Moore issues horrifying demand to America. Although liberals claim their calls for gun control isn't a measure to take all guns away, their proposals say otherwise. Americans need to pay attention and not be fooled by liberal lies. Liberal activist and documentary filmmaker Michael Moore is calling for the repeal of the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution in the wake of the tragic Las Vegas massacre. In a lengthy post written on Facebook, Michael Moore proposed repealing the Second Amendment and replacing it with a 28th Amendment protecting the right of all people to be free from gun violence. According to Moore, the Second Amendment ought to be repealed and replaced with an amendment reading, "A well-regulated state National Guard, being helpful to the safety and security of a state in times of need, along with the strictly regulated right of the people to keep and bear a limited number of non-automatic arms for sport and hunting, with respect to the primary right of all people to be free from gun violence, this shall not be infringed." This new amendment would stand in stark contrast to the Second Amendment, which reads, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed." Specifically, Moore hopes to eliminate the right to a well-regulated militia, and wants to replace it with the privilege to use certain weapons for sport and hunting. Moore's proposed amendment is functionally different from the current Second Amendment, as it would prevent American citizens from opposing a tyrannical government. The Founding Fathers stated their intentions clearly in the preamble to the Revolutionary Declaration of Independence. "Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed," wrote the Committee of Five. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government. Now Michael Moore is hoping to eliminate the right to abolish an oppressive government. Further, eliminating this right would allow politicians to enact laws that are currently unconstitutional. Some of the laws proposed by Moore include a sexist law forcing only men to first get a waiver from his current wife, plus his most recent ex-wife, before they are allowed to purchase a firearm. A ban on all semi- and fully automatic weapons. And banning guns from being stored in the home, forcing them to be kept at gun ranges or staffed hunting lodges. Essentially, Michael Moore is attempting to completely undermine the foundation of American government and the relationship between citizens in the state. Moore wants to repeal Second Amendment. Does anyone take him seriously? The Founding Fathers believed that the powers of government are derived from the consent of the governed, and violent insurrection is the only mechanism citizens have to resist a totalitarian government. Essentially, by repealing the Second Amendment, Michael Moore is offering unlimited power to the federal government regardless of the consent of we the people. Further, Moore is attempting to shift the relationship between citizens and their government. The U.S. Constitution clearly dictates the limits imposed on government and not the people. Protecting the right of all people to be free from gun violence would limit the rights of people and not the powers of government, as the Second Amendment currently does. Under the current version of the Constitution, the government is restricted from infringing on our rights. Under Moore's proposed 28th Amendment, the American people would be restricted, and any access to guns would be a privilege granted by our benevolent leaders, not the fundamental right envisioned by our Founding Fathers. Moore's proposed amendment proves only one thing: Moore exists as constitutionally illiterate.